internets, man. I don't even know how to introduce our next guest, man. You know, legend, icon, graffiti artist, hip hop ambassador, downtown art Svengali, the world's first VJ, video director, film, like what the fuck, man. Without further ado, internets, I introduce on the Combat Jack Show featuring Dallas Penn, Fab 5 Freddy.
Hey.
What's up, Fab?
What up, baby?
Yo, first and foremost, I'm so honored that you're here on so many different levels.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, we've had artists, we've had executives, we've had personalities and lawyers and politicians, but no one can I can't put you in a box, B.
Yeah, I don't need to be in no box. I ain't ready to be boxed up just yet.
Nah, not at all, man. But yo, it's like, dude, I've been watching your shit, B, since as long as I can remember. And I'm talking about even before MTV. I'm talking about, you know, the Blondie shit. I'm talking about the fucking like, dude, how are you, man?
It's good, my man. How you been?
I can't complain, man. Life is good. Life is beautiful, you know.
Cool.
We're in a new year.
I was thinking when I was walking down here, when was the last time I saw you? At Clark Kent's birthday?
Probably, yeah.
Last time I actually saw you.
Yeah.
I know we keep in communication.
We keep it E.
Yes,
we keep it E.
He definitely keeps it E. Electronic and digital.
How's life, man?
Everything's good, man.
Yeah?
You know, yeah. Moving on, moving strong.
The Dallas Penn, Fab 5 Freddy, B.
Fab, I gotta relate to you one of my old experiences with Fab.
Internets, man.
Fab is just a man about town. And Fab, do you remember that red convertible that you had? 15, maybe 15.
No, it wasn't a red convertible.
Wasn't a red convertible?
It was an aqua turquoise.
Was it that? Okay.
Aqua turquoise.
Well, then Fab, you were on.
What was it? What was aqua turquoise? What?
Cadillac.
No, 57 Chevy.
Oh,
what?
Okay. I remember
my first car.
I remember how splashy that convertible was, and I remember you driving down 15th or 16th Street, somewhere downtown.
Yeah.
Right above 14. But I said Fab 5. And you had like about 4 or 5 girls. You know I used to pack with ladies. But you still like, you know, you threw up the deuces like, yo, what up, man? And boom, just kept it moving. I was like, yeah, Fab.
Wow. Well, you know.
So Fab, man, I got a lot of questions for you, man, and I guess I'm gonna go to the start, man. Like,
yeah, let's go.
Like, how was your childhood, man? You grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I'm from Bed-Stuy.
Bed-Stuy, and
yes,
like, tell us about your childhood, man.
My childhood was great, you know, just wild in the streets, but you know, doing what I had to do.
Now you say wild in the streets. Now, when you was coming up, like New York has gone through all of these periods, man. But you grew up in Brooklyn in the 70s, man, and it was a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Like tell us about that era of New York that most of these internet cats have no idea.
What aspect would you like me to talk about?
Just culturally, you said you was wild in the streets.
Well, culturally, it's like for me, I come from a background around of a lot of creative, inspirational thinking people. You know, for those who don't know, Max Roach, the legendary bebop jazz drummer, was my godfather. My dad grew up with him, so it was a lot of music being played in the crib, you know, a lot of bebop, a lot of like interesting conversation. You know, my father was the type of cat that was very concerned about, you know, what was going on now, what was going on with us as a people. He was in the room when Malcolm X was assassinated.
Wow.
You know, so he, you know, but he also went to Washington, March on Washington with King. So that kind of spirit and vibe was in my house, like, you know, like intelligent, creative folks, free thinking, you know. I'm a little kid running around. It all adds up to me later how it, you know, the kind of effect that it actually had on me. And Max was really close to me through everything I did in culture. Very supportive, very curious, you know what I'm saying? He had hit Miles Davis to what I was doing as far as hip hop, because these cats were always thinking about different things. So along with that kind of background growing up, you know, my parents didn't restrict who I could run with, you know, on the block or whatever, on the avenue. So I ran with the best of the worst, you know. Louis Ave,
you had the Tomahawks at the time.
Tomahawks.
You had the Jolly Stompers at the time.
Cats from Bed-Stuy, who I was, you know, close with. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, we moved and grooved and did our thing, and it didn't get too, you know, it wasn't too much about the wildness that goes on now. But, you know, we was a group of cats that held each other down. Basically to sum it up, if you got into a serious beef at any point when I was coming up, 90% of the time it was settled with your hands. It's AKA known as the knuckle game. You know what I mean? You had what was called a fair one. There was a whole set of rules and etiquette to how beefs would be settled. No guns, no knives. We gonna duke it out.
So cats that you had encounters with wasn't pulling out the 007s and the
007s was in the pocket, but literally like
nobody had the heart to stab nobody really.
If you was a real known tough guy, roughneck, bad boy, it was because of your knuckle game. Right. And that means you was nice with it. And cats, there's different styles of fighting that don't really exist anymore. Where cats look really fly. The equivalent 52 block jailhouse, jailhouse style, aka it's a form of fighting. Actually, I was working on a documentary on this, the history of it, because it was a whole etiquette on a par with how dudes would duel back in other times, where it was a whole set of rules. Walk 10 paces, turn, and I'm gonna bust at you. So in terms of how you settled the beef with your hands,
it was kind of gentlemanly.
It was, thank you, gentlemanly is the word that I'm looking for. And cats in that time on the rougher side of things that were known for being, that kind of cat would go anywhere. And if you was walking through different hoods and cats said, yo, what you doing here? What's up? Well, yo, you're not walking through here until you knuckle up with so-and-so. Right. It was a 52 duel, you know what I mean? And then it would be broken up. And 90% of the time, you would live to be friends with that person. Right. That's
mutual respect.
And mutual respect that even if you lost the fight, the fact that you were not afraid to settle the beef with your hands was what you got your accolades for and your respect for. It wasn't standing across the street and like pulling out, like and blasting off.
Or blasting behind somebody's back or some shit like that.
Unfortunate stuff that goes on now. It was about let's settle this hand to hand, man to man. And, live to be cool and respect each other another day. So that was the backdrop of what the streets were like.
Now, how was your knuckle game?
I didn't, I'm not gonna go around bragging. I can handle my own. I wasn't backing out, but that wasn't what I made my name on. Is like cats that was nice. It was cats that went around, and that's how they were defined by so and so is
nice, right?
Like there were cats that had legendary skills and also name status on a par with cats that got hit records because this cat is nice with his hands. Right. It was like gunslinger type stuff with your knuckle game. So that was a significant part of how dudes settled beefs coming up 70s. And then unfortunately going into the 80s when the crack thing kicked in, then along with that came the bang bang shoot 'em up. And unfortunately, things changed.
Now, what were some of the things you were doing though? Because, it seems like from an early age you were inspired by the environment that you were cultured with in your household.
No question.
It seems, from the outside looking in, that you were always seeking that artistic stimulation. Pause. Is that pause?
No. Artistic stimulation that's legit.
Yeah, I guess, I began to, I was involved in different things in the street, write my name on walls.
Well, when did you first get up?
In the 70s, it was no.
How old were you when you first started tagging?
Young teen, high school, teenagers. It wasn't like I was trying to, be all city. I wasn't the top cat. I just participated in that as adolescent, rambunctious teenage activity. And, followed. For those who don't know, before it was known as hip-hop, there were mobile DJs. There's actually a history that goes back to cats doing this in the 50s that had mobile sound systems, and that was known as disco. And these were guys like Grandmaster Flowers, Maboya, Frankie D, Master D, that's now DJ Lance. And these were cats that played, the hot records of the day, but they had mobile sound systems.
Wait a minute, DJ Lance from Yo Gabba?
No.
Yo Gabba Gabba?
No, I don't. I know Biz is on Yo Gabba.
Yeah. Biz is on Yo Gabba, and DJ Lance is on Yo Gabba, but
not that.
I don't know if it's that.
Not that Lance.
Oh.
Nah.
Well preserved.
This is a cat. I know, but anyway, that was the thing that I watched and followed and watched that turn into what we now know of as hip hop to a certain extent, or what was once known as hip hop.
See, now coming up, I remember when you had the block parties.
Yes.
You had cats come out with the sets.
Yeah.
But it was still, you could tell that it was, it was like this soulful thing. It was like the children of like the soul generation. Mm-hmm. You had the disco, you had the funk. But hip hop wasn't still.
No, my man Hassan, there's clips of it you can find on the web. It created a bit of controversy a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, it didn't get a distribution deal because the DVD game went away. But it was called Founding Fathers. Mm-hmm. And it was about the precursor to hip-hop DJs, the names that we all know and love. Before those cats happened, a whole nother group of cats happened that inspired those guys. Mm-hmm. So this is Pete DJ Jones, Flowers. The original Grandmaster was a cat from Brooklyn, Grandmaster Flowers.
I remember Flowers.
It was Plumber. It was a bunch of these guys that were basically mobile DJs, also known as disco DJs, that had sound systems that were rock star popular throughout the metropolitan area.
And you were following these DJs?
Not following, because I was a real young shorty with no chips. But when they came and played block parties in my vicinity, in my hood, in parks, Lincoln Terrace or whatever, that was a big thing to go run and do.
Where's the first place you were, man? Tell me your first actual hip hop experience, man.
Well, my first hip hop experience, in terms of differentiating between what I just described when I was a young shorty, what was going on, and this cut and scratch and these really, really interesting records that we now know of as breakbeats, when those eased in, certain DJs that I follow began to pick up and play pieces of it. But we were like, and I was one of those cats that was extra curious. That's real different from what other cats, because at those kind of parties, if you would be a cat that was really curious among all the different elements that would be at a party, the real curious cats would huddle around the DJ, arms folded, feet positioned, classic b-boy stance, staring at the DJ all night, trying to figure this shit out. And those cats who did that a lot would often end up in the game.
Right.
And began to see and hear different things that were a little different than the standard funk, disco, soul, funk, whatever the record was that was being played. And so I began to inkling there was something, and cats would say, this is like that uptown sound. It was something that was definitely different. Began to get word that was coming from uptown. And those were, that was when, the whole Flash, Herc, Bambaataa, the beginnings of that, Theodore, those cats, Kaz and those guys, and you'd eventually lead to that. So eventually I started hanging out in Manhattan, brother named Lee Quinones that I would do a lot of artwork with.
How'd you meet Lee, man?
I met Lee, I really kind of sought Lee out because I had ideas at that time about making moves into the art world, and I connected with Lee. Explain some ideas about, at that point I had figured out a whole thing, like I need to I think myself, and I felt like others were doing work that I felt should be could move into another lane, basically the galleries and other means of exposure.
So
of the
your
work.
aspirations at the time was to be a visual artist.
Yeah, at that time I began to think about being a visual artist and moving into that realm, and that's how I met Lee. Right. And actually through meeting Lee, who lived in the Smith Projects on the Lower East Side, some of the uptown DJs had come down into that area and played, and then I would later get really connected and hear,
Fab,
my first uptown tapes.
I want to ask you, were you ever a part of iCry, the Inner City Roundtable of Youth? Are you?
Never.
Okay. I think then they used your name then. They used your name because I remember being part of this group, and they were situated in the building right above J&R Music World. They had an office inside there
in the Wall Street area.
Yeah, right above the City Hall area, right. City Hall Vicinity. And they were like, Fab Five Freddy, he's one of the owners here. He's one of the, but they were basically recruiting young taggers, young graph artists to do like public works projects.
They was using your name, B.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
So, that's another question I was going to ask you, man, because I remember coming up in Brooklyn, the world was a lot different. The world was a lot bigger.
No question.
And very few cats ventured off their block. Very few cats from Brooklyn ventured into Manhattan if they didn't have to go to Manhattan.
To this day.
That's so true.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
so
right.
So now you're hanging out with Lee, and you're in the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
And your world is starting to expand.
No question, yeah.
And you're starting to meet cats from uptown.
Well, no, it didn't really go like that. Like, I didn't meet those cats, really meet cats uptown yet I connected with Lee on making some moves and doing some things around art.
Right.
Like really helping, creating a lane for cats like myself and other cats that understood how to get busy and do things on the street, that come from the background and were down to try to make a move into moving and doing things in the art world. And then around,
so you were on a mission to make the art form, the graffiti, a valid and respected art form.
You really couldn't even consider it an art form. It was just like cats writing their name.
Right.
Cats were doing it. It was just raw energy. Like, you know, cats jamming at parties in the beginning. Wasn't really trying to make music. We were just trying to play these records and have some fun.
And you just touched on it, man. Back then, you didn't have all of this distractions like video games. You didn't have the internet. You didn't have no cell phones. So you had to be creative, but still at the same time, cats were trying to apply themselves in one way or another. Be it through music, be it through rapping, be it through art form or breakdancing, the whole nine.
Yeah.
You was if you were forward thinking, or if you were just a regular kid that had ambition and you had nothing else to do, you was either in the ballpark, you had to find something to do. And this is what you were doing.
That's pretty much what it was. Nobody really thought about it in any way, like any.
It was organic.
It was organic. It was, let's just do this. Let's play this music. It's fly. It's fun. Let's write my name. I'm trying to be known in my hood, in my block, in my area, whatever. It was really basic and really simple. But I began to develop ideas about how these things could be formulated and presented. Because I had looked at like artwork and seen images of, I used to cut school and go to museums, and I had gotten really comfortable and would just like read about a lot of different artists, and seems like some of the things that have been going on in the street I felt was just as relevant and significant. But I was like, is there a way that this stuff can be put into an arena where it can be looked at as such?
And even in an arena where you can create this art without the pressure of being seen as a quote-unquote criminal or vandal.
Yeah, that wasn't so much pressure. That was going to be a part of the transition. I mean, a lot of the negative racially motivated perceptions of young black people were what they were. It was a lot harsher at that time. Like if you were anything close to what you consider urban now, you know, you were typically considered like a criminal, the way you were depicted in the media. So anyway, but a key thing that I would do is connect with people on the like new wave punk rock scene. I began to meet people that I felt would be open to my ideas, to a radical way of thinking, would be open to look at these things and take them seriously and give me some support. And that began to happen, meeting people that were connected in downtown media like Glenn O'Brien from Interview Magazine, which I would later become really close with him, and he became a mentor to me. I would meet Jean-Michel Basquiat around that time.
How did you meet Jean-Michel?
Like I'm explaining, on that scene.
Right.
Like he was also moving in that lane, felt like this was a sensibility of people that were open to really different ideas, anything goes, kind of. That under, like the kind of creative underpinnings of a lot of the punk rock, new wave attitude was just like an open thing, you know, to new ideas, new ways of doing it. And so I met Jean on that scene pretty much, you know, at a party downtown. And right away we had similar ideas from this, you know, he's from Bushwick, I'm from Bed-Stuy, and he basically knew about a lot of these same artists, and the kind of crazy ideas I'm coming up with, he was in sync with and was on a similar path to like make his move as an artist or be a band. It was going to be one way or the other. We was going to make it happen, was what we was both on, you know, film, music.
There was no separation at the time, really, in a sense.
Well, but we was like easily able to dabble in different things. You know, Jean produced a record, you know, was in a film, was down to make film. You know, it was, you know, I ended up doing Wild Style, showing my work in galleries and stuff like that. And then other people came into the picture. And a part of that, being a part of that world, was how I would meet Charlie Ahern at an art show, downtown Milieu, and I had these ideas about creating a film about this to kind of put it to show people that it was awesome, fly, you know, connected, and that would lead to Wild Style. And so that was significant. And then in the process of working on Wild Style, the research, etc., now I get to go up to the Bronx, and now we get to go to T Connection, Ecstasy Garage, Celebrity Club,
Harlem World, Disco
World,
Fever, whole
and
nine.
see it all go down, meet the artists, because we were working on, learning about it. I had heard some things, heard some tapes, but now we frontline, connecting with Busy Bee, meeting Kaz, you know what I'm saying, working with Theodore, Funky 4 plus one more. And then I guess at the same time we doing that, I'm developing my friendship with Chris Stein and Debbie Harry from Blondie that got my back, helping me out with advice on how to make moves to get Wild Style made, me and Charlie. And that would eventually lead to them making Rapture and making that record, So it was a whole organic exchange of ideas, creative flows, information. That's really pretty much what it was.
And what's crazy though is, like you said, this is organic. You're really not planning it. You're just moving.
No, it was definitely planned. Definitely, like I'm saying, I'm strategizing, baby, right. And so that's me and my man Jean Michel. We was plotting shit out. Like it wasn't by chance. I meet Debbie Harry, Chris Stein from.
So y'all basically was like, yo,
said,
we got to get these cats on board.
Basically, like I said, I'm looking for an arena where I can find some people that's going to listen to these crazy ideas and possibly take me serious and possibly go, yeah, I do think that this stuff could be looked at as art. Yeah, those cats cutting and scratching. Yeah, that does sound like. Because I'm like, yo, this is a new form of me. But I'm like, So they were agreeing with
OG hype man for hip hop.
Not even hype man, baby. I'm trying to really just, create a kind of a lane to put this in a perspective that it really had not been in, and then that sparks off, certain things begin to happen, and eventually that sparks off that downtown media, like my instincts were right. It was a whole audience of people that were open to looking at this stuff for what it was. And then the platforms for different things began to happen where a few people could get on stage. Like, I would curate a show at the Mud Club of my artwork.
Which was legendary.
But yeah, the show that I curated, the show is called Beyond Words. It's written about in the art. Futura. Yeah, and I'm now moving with Futura and other cats that have the sophistication plus street graffiti cats that could, come into other environments and move around other different types of people and put their work on canvas. This is all brand new to everybody, know. And then,
are you still doing subways at the time too?
It was, for me, my last subway train was a big train I painted covered in Campbell soup cans. A la homage to Andy Warhol. Right. It was also like a message to let people that was hip to that know that some of us down there doing these graffiti was kind of hip to modern art, whoever that was.
Like these are just not your stereotypical cats that's uncultured.
Yeah.
Cats are up on what y'all motherfuckers are jerking off to. Pause.
Yes, exactly. That was one of the messages of that. And that was also kind of a calling card for me when I'm moving, that this is, that it was a statement about how I was thinking, but also like a reflection that, other people around us were capable of.
One question before we go to our music break. B.
Okay.
The Campbell soup can. Mm-hmm. Like, out of all the works that you were influenced by, why the soup cans? Why not the Marilyn
just because
Monroe's?
It was... No, well, primarily because it was it was a really like a breakout thing for Andy, and it kind of was a big thing in modern art to paint like an object like that. I mean, that's the essence of pop art, means popular things that are very common in popular culture. So there were comic book characters,
Lichtenstein.
Well, Lichtenstein's style was all based on comic book. A visual from comic book.
And the color dots in the whole nine.
Yeah, the Ben-Day dots. But Andy's thing would take these items from everyday life and the Campbell soup can, and he made this painting of it, and it was like it was a big thing in the art world that was symbolic of pop art, and then pop art becomes a part of art history. So, but one of the things that inspired me was the fact that that a lot of graffiti, when graffiti began to really develop into color form, big 3D letters going into Wild Style and whatever, it was all inspired by comic books and, the lettering that you would see on a box of soap. Like, I want my name to look like Tide. I want to combine that. How can I get that drop shadow? I mean, that was a thing that developed where guys began to figure that out, from just scrawling your name in some real simple, just whatever, to really refined and define ways of using the materials to execute stuff that was just like, how did this cat make it look like that? you know, and it was developing techniques to use in Canada. So a lot of things were developing really rapidly, all motivated by a pursuit of just how to make my name and get it out there real big and nice. Everybody can see me. You know, I want to be as dope as the advertiser for Marlboro cigarettes, whatever. It's my name.
Brought it in Broadway, in a sense.
Exactly.
How long was that piece up, man? It was on the 5 line, right?
That train was done on the 5, and for some reason, and I believe that some people in the MTA just wanted it to keep running because the train ran for an incredibly long time.
Approximately how long?
I can't even say, because when you paint a train, when cats was painting trains back then, you couldn't tell if the train would go and get painted that next day. You had no way of knowing what train was scheduled to go into what they call a buff, where the trains would get washed and cleaned. So you had no way of knowing that. So... But that's why when a train ran really long, so typically cats would do that back in that period. You ever see anybody you really want to get a snapshot of this era? There's a documentary called Style Wars.
Style Wars, yeah.
Which actually they're trying to raise money to get to pull out more of the archival footage and clean up the film digitally and put it through a Blu-ray process. They just had a big Kickstarter campaign to raise money, but that's the film along with my movie Wild Style. But Style Wars is the documentary showing you the process, seeing the cats and their sensibilities. And while Style Wars was going on, like cats like myself, we were making our transition somewhat into the art world at that time in the early 80s.
Yo, let's take a music break. Yep. And then we'll be back with Fat Five Freddy. You're tuned into the Combat Jack Show featuring Dallas Penn.
Yes,
and www.pncradio.fm.
F your radio. F your radio. F your radio.